Hello, welcome to Eternal Beta. I'm Scott Rowe.
And I'm Nathan Anderson.
This week we have a topic that I think actually will affect a lot of people, and that's actually passwords. We all use an enormous number of different services, from your email, and it could be corporate email, you have different private email accounts, we have different social networks that we use, we have banking accounts, you may have a different mortgage account as opposed to your financing of an automobile, you have to have those different passwords. And one of the big problems that a lot of us have is remembering them and really knowing what a good password is. And I think companies have gotten better over time at making password suggestions, kind of telling you whether or not they think the password is strong or not, and forcing you to at least have a medium level security on a password. Mm-hmm. But that's easier said than done, and there are a lot of things that people need to understand about passwords and how risky they can really be.
Yeah. Well, people think about their passwords and it's safe because it's hard for someone to remember, but something that's hard for a person to remember can be very easy for a computer. And that's the problem that we have, is that small passwords, like you were talking about complexity, like an 8-character password is very easy for a computer to crack, because computers can think about things very, very quickly. All of the combinations of 8 characters, or the alphabet and numbers, 36 to the 10th power or 8th power, that's an awful lot for us, but very easy for a computer.
Exactly.
So it's like you had mentioned earlier that I think isn't it 23 seconds that all those billions of passwords can be enumerated?
Right. There's actually commercially available software out there that lets someone put through a password and actually to decrypt it, and it could literally take as short as 22 seconds to decrypt an entire 8-digit password. And that doesn't matter if you're using different characters. Could have an exclamation point, a pound sign. Half the characters could be uppercase, the other half lowercase. It doesn't matter to the computer. That really doesn't matter, and it can crack that quickly.
Yeah.
So
it's a problem. What do we do to fix it?
So that's the big question. For me, it's always been a bit of an issue in that I do have different social media accounts, and there was Twitter is one that they've had numerous hacks for passwords. I've had to update those passwords, and LinkedIn's another one. And I'm going to let Nathan talk a bit about LinkedIn, because he actually has some practical experience in actually investigating that when it happened.
Yeah, so I think that was late last year, and you might remember about 150 million LinkedIn users' passwords had been leaked. Basically, some hackers broke into one of their servers and stole stuff from one of their databases. And when these companies, or not companies, probably companies, who knows, steal passwords, they're not actually getting your literal password. They are getting a encrypted or hashed representation of it. And so what people do then is they take, because you can't see what the actual password is, you generate all the passwords beforehand, all possible passwords, and then you compare them in that database. And so then I see, okay, I have a match for this decoded phrase, or this encoded phrase, and this encoded phrase. So now what was the original one? And bam, now I have that password and the user's email address. And so when this happened, I downloaded the dump that the crackers had, and were letting people in the office know if their LinkedIn account had been hacked. I was hashing the passwords just like them and letting them know if it was in there. And that's actually one of the scariest parts, is that crackers and hackers, they're not interested in your LinkedIn account, they're interested in your bank accounts and your other financial information. Because people tend to use the same password or the same variation of passwords in many different places, the first thing these guys do when they get an email address and password is they go out and they hit banks, and they hit credit cards, they get anywhere that they can pull money and start doing fraud. And that's why, I think you had mentioned earlier, it's important to, at minimum, at least have variations of passwords for your different websites. Or if you're going to have only 2 different passwords, use one password for your financial institutions and one for everything else.
Entertainment and things like that. So maybe your Netflix account and your Twitter account, maybe using a different password.
Yep.
But so one of the things we just kind of wanted to talk about is, how can you really create a better password? Certain systems are going to have specific requirements, right? We all know that. You create a new account and said it must be, no more than 8 characters, or at least 8 characters, and they said it must have at least one random character and that type of thing. But when you have an opportunity to create any kind of a password you want, and there are a lot of services that do allow that, it's much more open, try to think of a unique way that you can create a password that will make it easy for you to remember, but make it unique for every single property that you actually leverage, every service that you register for. So one of the concepts behind that would be, say I'm a really big fan of Star Wars, okay? So I'm going to actually use the term...
Which I think is probably true.
It's probably true. I'm, not as much as I used to be, I have to admit. As a child, though, absolutely. So you say Star Wars. So that is a key phrase that you're going to be using in your password. But say now I'm going to actually register for Twitter. Let's say I'm going to use Twitter and Star Wars together. Twitter representing the social network and Star Wars, being another set of keywords within that. But I'm not going to take Twitter and just make it Twitter. I'm actually going to remove the final character of that. So it's Twitter without the E, followed by Star Wars. And then I may actually look at something else. I may find another kind of index. Maybe it's the Greek alphabet. Maybe it's something else like that. And then take that that final character and use that. So if it was R, it would actually be Rho, R-H-O, in the Greek alphabet. That may sound kind of confusing, but when you really start to think about that, if you have each one of those letters that you can encrypt into something else, and I have...
It's making a pattern.
It's
a
pattern,
pattern. It's
right,
a pattern
exactly.
that's easy for you to understand based on the site that you're on, but is hard for a computer to guess because it's longer.
Right.
I mean, length is the key here.
And that's what I was going to say, because even though that may seem like a large number of characters, when you start to really understand what your pattern is, that stuff's easy to remember. Even if you went a little more simplistic and created a password that didn't have that kind of thing, but the pattern was just more of a, I like tasty chicken nuggets or something like that. That is actually a lot stronger than for me. Say if I was using !, Scott R. 1927 or 1234 or something like that. That is actually a heck of a lot easier to encrypt or to decrypt and to take that password than I like tasty chicken nuggets, because there's so many more characters and so many potential variables. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. Do you have any opinions on that?
No,
do you like tasty chicken nuggets, or?
I do like chicken nuggets. If we were naming passwords after food, I would have many, many, many different passwords. I have no problem having a unique password, but. You're right. I mean, passphrase is a term that people are now trying to use, encourage people to get to that length. I mean, that's the problem. Is like at the beginning we were ingrained in simplicity of easy passwords, but now the world has changed, and I mean, pretty much anywhere where our information is stored can be hit by nefarious people. Right. So and going back to what I said before, it's not about is it easy for people to guess, it's easy if it's easy for computers to guess. Mm-hmm. And so if you just train yourself to have different passwords or different groups of passwords, even though it can be a bit of a pain at first, you'll be much better off in the long run, because it would suck to be to be a victim of identity theft. I mean, there's a lot of mess to clean up, and having a slightly tougher password and that little painful transition phase
small price to pay.
Probably worth it in the end, yeah.
So I hope that at least helps you to think about passwords in a little bit different way, especially if you are, in marketing and digital marketing, you're leveraging a lot of different types of accounts. I mean, you have to think about the fact that a lot of these small social startups that come up, and we want to jump on the bandwagon, we want to register for them immediately. If we're using our regular passwords using for the others, we really don't know who these individuals are. Mm-hmm. We don't know how they're storing the information. They could be storing our passwords in plain text. They may not even be doing any sort of hashing or encryption or anything of these passwords, and we honestly don't know who these individuals are. They could literally be trying to collect information or to be able to use it in nefarious ways. So
if you use the same password that you're using for your banking site when you give it to some random site, that's the equivalent of handing a person your checkbook.
It pretty much is. If you're using the same email address and everything, it absolutely is. So hopefully it gives you something to think about. If you do have any questions or thoughts, please feel free to tweet us at Bozell, at Bozell, and thanks for watching.
Thank you.